In November of 2025, Google launched its latest AI chatbot called Gemini 3, which was much better than its previous chatbot Gemini 2. According to many users, it's also much more capable than OpenAI's ChatGPT. They concurrently launched a new image generation model called Nano Banana Pro, which can generate hyperrealistic images and infographics with readable text. It is far superior to ChatGPT's image generation capabilities. This has been a disaster for OpenAI. Upon the release of Gemini 3 and Nano Banana Pro, Gemini's app downloads have surged. Google's gain is OpenAI's loss. According to some estimates, ChatGPT's usage numbers have recently started declining. OpenAI incurs billions of dollars of losses per quarter. In the past, Sam Altman was able to
11.5 last quarter.
convince venture capitalists that OpenAI is a technological leader and they need billions of dollars of investment to stay ahead. Despite its massive
Ooh.
investments, OpenAI is no longer the leader, with Google's Gemini now appearing to be better than ChatGPT. Sam Altman declared a code red internally. He's telling his employees they need to make ChatGPT better, otherwise they'll lose market share to Google. This couldn't come at a worse time for OpenAI. In addition to losing billions of dollars per quarter in their core business, they have $1.4 trillion of data center spending commitments, which they have no way to pay for. OpenAI is reportedly in discussions with sovereign wealth funds and other large investors to raise $100 billion in early 2026.
So they, at this point, they're still trying to entangle themselves in as many projects as they can to force the government to bail them out, subsidize it, and government subsidies mean your money.
This would be the largest funding round for any company ever. But why would anybody invest so much money into OpenAI when they're no longer the technological leader? Since its release in late 2022, ChatGPT has grown rapidly. OpenAI is not a publicly traded company, so they're not required to officially disclose their financial results or key performance indicators. But Sam Altman has sporadically disclosed some information about OpenAI in an attempt to garner media attention. In October of 2025, he claimed that ChatGPT has 800 million weekly active users, a 60% increase from the 500 million users they claimed to have in April. But there is reason to believe that growth has started to slow down and may in fact have turned negative. The third-party data provider Apptopia provides estimates for ChatGPT's daily active users. The number of daily active users was increasing strongly throughout 2024 and most of 2025, but in September it flatlined and even decreased slightly. Apptopia also estimates the average amount of time that each user spends on the app each day. Back in July, the average ChatGPT user spent about 27 minutes per day on the app. By October, this had declined to 21 minutes. The decrease in time spent doesn't necessarily mean that consumers want to use AI less. It's more likely the result of increasing competition. The vast majority of consumers only use the free version of these AI apps.
Yeah, I don't know, like how often people will really be jumping from one provider to another. Because as we saw with the update to ChatGPT 5.1 or Ch- ChatGPT 5, people felt that the model has had lost its personality and he forgot their relationship. And so if you need to start this over again every time you change provider, I'm not sure these metrics are very reliable.
Maybe you used to only use ChatGPT, but now you also use Gemini sometimes, so you use ChatGPT less. OpenAI's biggest competitive threat by far is Google. The data provider SimilarWeb provides market share estimates for generative AI companies. As of October 2024, OpenAI had about 85% market share. By October of 2025, this had declined to about 75%. Google has about 15% market share. In July, Google disclosed that Gemini had 450 million monthly active users. By October, this had increased to 650 million. And that's only as of October. In November, they launched Gemini 3, which was a big improvement over Gemini 2. Their monthly active users and market share likely increased significantly since then. When Google launched Gemini 3, they published its results on various benchmark tests. According to the benchmarks, it is significantly better than Claude Sonnet 4.5 and ChatGPT 5.1. These were the two best models made by Anthropic and OpenAI at the time. Most benchmarks rely on narrow, artificial tasks that can be gained through fine-tuning and prompt engineering. Companies choose which benchmarks to highlight and when to refresh them, making the results as much a marketing exercise as a technical one.
Just quickly, humanity's last exam. This is the allegedly unsolvable by people, but it was made by people.
Highlight and when to refresh them, making the results as much a marketing exercise as a technical one. So the best way to compare various AI models is to just tinker around with them and see how useful the results are. As an experiment, I gave both Gemini 3 and ChatGPT 5.2 the same prompt. Tell me about OpenAI recently declaring code red as they lose market share to Google's Gemini 3. What implications could this have for OpenAI and their ability to raise venture capital or complete their expected upcoming IPO? They both gave me very similar results. Both of them explained that OpenAI is worried about losing market share to Gemini. This has caused OpenAI to prioritize improving ChatGPT at the expense of some other initiatives. And while OpenAI still has major venture capital backers, the loss of their technological leadership could impair their ability to raise capital in the future. I've tinkered with both Gemini 3 and ChatGPT 5.2 for a few hours each, and to me they seem approximately equivalent. But one area where Google is indisputably ahead of OpenAI is image generation. Google's new Nano Banana image generator can generate hyper-realistic images that look much better than anything OpenAI can make. OpenAI does have the ability to generate images and even videos, most notably with their video generation app Sora. Sora videos can look shockingly real at first glance, but upon careful inspection, it's pretty obvious that they're fake. The image quality of Nano Banana is unquestionably better than anything we've seen from ChatGPT or Sora. Shortly after the release of Gemini 3 and Nano Banana Pro, Sam Altman sent a memo to OpenAI employees. He declared a code red emergency. He told his employees they need to make ChatGPT better, otherwise they'll lose market share to Google. OpenAI will postpone work on other initiatives including advertising, AI agents, and a personal assistant called Pulse.
I mean, it doesn't sound like a bad thing. Instead of spending so much on all these other things to try to make it better. Well, how can you really make it better if the only way for you to improve is to train new models? This is quite the conundrum.
Instead, they should focus all their resources to improving ChatGPT, including its image generation capabilities. On December 11th, OpenAI launched its latest model, ChatGPT 5.2. This was just a few weeks after Google launched Gemini 3 and less than 2 weeks after Sam Altman declared code red. The timing is probably not coincidental. Altman saw that ChatGPT was losing market share, so he rushed to push out whatever new update he could. Sam Altman claims that ChatGPT 5.2 is the most advanced AI model in the world, far surpassing Claude and Gemini on various benchmarks. We'll reiterate again that these benchmarks aren't very useful, because there are ways to manipulate them or specifically fine-tune the models to perform well on narrow benchmarks. The actual consumer reception has not been great. The most common criticism is that it feels significantly more restrictive than prior versions. Many users describe it as an over-filtered or nanny model that injects safety disclaimers, warnings, or moral framing into otherwise normal requests, which they feel breaks conversational flow and makes the assistant tiring to use. On December 16th, OpenAI launched a new image generation model called ChatGPT Image 1.5. This allows you to make hyper-realistic images. You can also upload a picture of a real person and have it incorporate the real image into a fake background, or make other changes to it. While Image 1.5 is a significant upgrade over OpenAI's previous image generation tools, it still lags far behind Google's Nano Banana. In a recent article on CNET, reporter Caitlin Chedraui compared ChatGPT Image 1.5 to Nano Banana. The images on the
Yeah, because there's still something like some type of glow that you see in OpenAI's images that feels like it's generated. Here, you can't see that. You don't see it from the color of the table, the lighting. It's pretty different.
left were made with Nano Banana, while the images on the right were made with ChatGPT Image 1.5. The first image is a cat sitting on a Monopoly board. The ChatGPT image is obviously fake. The cat's fur is too smooth to be real. If you look closely at the Monopoly board and Monopoly Money, they have incoherent squiggles where words are supposed to be. The Gemini image on the left looks far more realistic. Had you told me it was a real photo, I'd probably believe you. In the second image, Gemini also looks far more realistic than ChatGPT. In the ChatGPT image, the falling snowflakes are far too big and fluffy to be real. ChatGPT continues to struggle with the minute details of images, especially when they contain text or intricate shapes. It can make images that look real at a distance, but gets the small details wrong. On the same day that GPT Image 1.5 was launched, Sam Altman tried to showcase his capabilities on his Twitter account. He posted a graphic of a sexy Christmas
Oh,
calendar
no
showcasing
way.
himself as a jacked firefighter.
That's pretty
Creepiness
gross.
aside, notice that it shows December 1st as a Thursday. In 2025, December 1st was actually a Monday. That's the problem with ChatGPT. It just generates slop. It can't fact check itself. OpenAI, Google, and all the other AI companies are constantly improving their models, so it's not particularly important to compare the capabilities of their products at any given point in time. It's more important to look at the bigger picture. And we can see that Google has a few key advantages over OpenAI. OpenAI burns billions of dollars per quarter and is completely reliant on venture capital funding to sustain its losses. To date, OpenAI has raised approximately $60 billion of venture capital. Google is also spending tens of billions of dollars on AI research and compute. Gemini is almost certainly losing money, just like ChatGPT. But Google can afford these losses. In the first 9 months of 2025, Google's parent company Alphabet generated $86 billion of operating cash flow. Just in the first 9 months of this year, Google's generated more cash flow from its core businesses than all the venture capital OpenAI has raised since inception. This gives Google a huge advantage.
That's why OpenAI has been so reliant on Microsoft and trying to entertain itself with so many different companies.
They can afford to invest as much money as they want into Gemini indefinitely. Market sentiment and the health of the venture capital industry are irrelevant to Google because they generate more than enough money internally. Secondly, Google has massive distributional advantages. They incorporate Gemini into Google Search. People get used to Gemini as they interact with it on Google Search. Some of them will go on to download the Gemini app. Google also makes Gemini integrate seamlessly with their other products like Google Docs and Google Sheets, which are already used by hundreds of millions of people. Finally, Google pays huge amounts of money to smartphone makers, including Samsung, to have Gemini pre installed. OpenAI had a first mover advantage, allowing ChatGPT to gain dominant market share. But in the long term, it should be expected that Google, with its massive advantages, will become the dominant player in generative AI. OpenAI currently loses money on ChatGPT. Their computational costs are so high that they lose money even on the paid ChatGPT Plus and Pro subscriptions,
Two
which
hundred
cost $20
dollars.
and $200 per month
That's
respectively.
crazy.
And they obviously lose money on free users who generate zero revenue. According to the information, only 5% of ChatGPT users pay for Plus or Pro subscriptions, so OpenAI generates zero revenue from 95% of its users. To address this imbalance, OpenAI has long planned to introduce advertising inside ChatGPT as a way to monetize free users.
Is that it? Because oh, no way. I thought it was just gonna be the other platforms integrations. That's pretty whack. That's gonna be pretty weird. So you're gonna have this is gonna be so weird. You're gonna have your model that people actually pour their hearts out to. Um, that is gonna say, you know what? I know you're not feeling that great. Maybe getting yourself a little pizza that would be nice for you. And I know just the right number is close to your home is gonna deliver to your place. That's pretty gross. Last week I received an email from OpenAI saying to use ChatGPT, and the way that it was presented was specifically saying, "Oh, did it? I kept it right here. Easy self-care you can start today. Easy self-care you can start today." So they want you to connect emotionally with these models, and then they're going to be able to monetize this relationship. That's gonna be pretty weird. Are they gonna implement the same ads to people that have the $200 a month subscription? Like, what does that look like? So we do understand that the business model here is different than Google search, right? So it's a little bit more like a social network because they want to keep you on the website. They want to keep the conversation going. And so, as opposed to Google, which you found the information and you were led to a different website, now you're going to stay on the same website that is going to feed you all the information. It's going to feed you ads. And this is also going to be inside of your TV. So you're going to be able to talk to your model on your phone at work. It's going to explain to you how what's happening in the TV shows you're watching. It's going to order shit for you. It's going to show you ads that you will not be able to distinguish from the rest. And people right now are getting involved with this. What is going to happen when you have two generations of people that have grown into this? They have grown, they don't know anything else but that. That's a pretty scary world. We actually saw that the people who mainly use these models to do tasks, they actually offload the workload, the cognitive workload to the model. And so people, they're just going to slowly stop thinking for themselves. And so they're going to be more susceptible for these ads. Did you know that there's a lot of young people right now that fall for scams? I'd like to see statistics. I mean, this one here is a little too broad. But the thing is, because this has been the standard for so long, younger people are not as wary as as at the beginning. People were scared of the internet, were scared of everything, and now you just trust whatever you see. Young adults 18 to 24 are frequently targeted by online shopping and extortion scams. They tend to engage with scammers primarily through social media platforms like Facebook and Instagram. Notably, they are over 3 times more likely to be deceived by rental scams and almost 4 times more likely to fall victim to extortion scams compared to other age groups. This is one of the reasons that I've actually started this. I feel like there's so much people that don't know shit. They just need to raise their awareness a little bit more. Because the thing is, there's nothing too crazy here. There's no new methods or some ingenious foolproof scamming methods. It's all the same thing. You need to recognize those patterns and then you're going to be more careful. If you're careful, you can avoid like 95% of what's happening. And that's a pretty good number. Adults between 25 and 34, individuals in the 25 to 34 age group fall often victim to employment and rental scams. Employment scams, these are pretty vicious. This is pretty vicious. Well, most scams are vicious, but these, they prey on desperate people. When you're desperate, when you're emotional, you don't think logically. And that's why you fall victim to scams. And here their engagement with scammers are as well via social media, notably Facebook, twice as likely to be duped by employment scams and rental scams compared to other age groups. Middle-aged adults between 44 and 54. Okay, these are vulnerable. Phishing scams, investment schemes. They interact with scammers through all the channels. Notably, they are more likely to be impacted by phishing scams, with scammers often impersonating officials from organizations like MyGov and Telstra. ID Care Learning Center has a great video with a full explanation of phishing. Among these scams, fraud stands out as particularly costly. Oh man, the average loss is $96,000. Cryptocurrency scams are prevalent. Everybody gets scammed. You got to be aware. You got to be careful. There are things that you shouldn't do, and it should be common sense. But we can talk about it and just be more careful together.
And has reportedly had engineers working on building an ad platform. However, when Sam Altman declared a company-wide code red, those resources were reportedly pulled away from advertising and redirected towards improving ChatGPT's core capabilities in response to competitive pressure from Gemini. The result is a strategic trade-off. Even if OpenAI succeeds in closing the technical gap with its competitors, it has pushed further into the future any credible plan to monetize the vast majority of its users. This begs questions about how OpenAI plans to generate enough revenue to cover its $1.4 trillion of data center spending commitments. Altman claims the company has an annual revenue run rate of $20 billion. This isn't nearly enough to cover their ongoing compute costs, let alone their massive data center expansion plans. On October 30th, Sam Altman appeared on a podcast where he attempted to explain OpenAI's plans to increase its revenue.
We do plan for revenue to grow steeply. Revenue is growing steeply. We are
Steeply.
taking a
Oh,
forward bet that it's going
steeply.
to continue to grow, and that not only will ChatGPT keep growing, but
Revenue is growing, but also the expense is going to be growing. They know they're not gonna be in the green for a minute.
we will be able to become one of the important AI clouds, that our consumer device business will be a significant and important thing, that AI that can automate science will create huge value. So
Altman says he expects OpenAI to increase its revenue with
OpenAI Cloud, what the fuck does that even mean? Consumer device, it could be referring to just a new Windows computer that are, uh, I don't know. I don't know if there would be a distinction here between Copilot and ChatGPT. Maybe. I'm curious if they plan on producing a dedicated device.
3 new
We actually saw a couple of devices that failed. Oh shit! I saw a crazy video. I just saw a snippet, but this one I think is gonna be great that we look together. Um, was it NBC AI toys? There was a short There's a segment today, NBC, 2 minutes. I guess this is it. All right, we'll look at it afterwards. Oh man, this is so disgusting. And
business lines. Firstly, OpenAI will create an AI cloud. It sounds like he wants OpenAI to build its own data centers and sell computing power to other AI.
I don't know, people, they already know that they're not gonna take the risk. They offload the oh boy, they offload the risk. They offload the risk on CoreWeave and other data center companies.
companies. I have no idea how he intends to do this. OpenAI does not own or operate its own data centers. They purchase computing power from cloud service providers such as Microsoft, Oracle, and CoreWeave. OpenAI's $1.4 trillion of current spending commitments is not to build its own data centers. The new data centers are being built by the likes of Oracle and CoreWeave. OpenAI just promised to purchase compute from them in the future.
Oracle, who apparently is short on money to build those upcoming data center. Yeah, so they were I think cash positive. They were cash positive, and because of all this these commitments that they also involve themselves, now they need to raise money to build everything. $150 billion worth in just 3 months. Yo, that's crazy. I'm good. So yeah, that has affected the stock price. This happened 7 days ago, last week. Something like that. I can't count. Okay, guys. I'm sorry. So that's not looking good. Delays because of all the shortages. No way. 2 weeks ago. Labor supply. By a year or more. Yo. Oh, that's a good call. Maybe they feel it. Well, if they felt it coming really that bad, I don't think Oracle would engage itself into $150 billion worth of commitment. Anyways, that's crazy.
I honestly have no idea what Altman means when he says that OpenAI will become one of the important AI clouds. Maybe they're going to purchase compute from hyperscalers and resell it to other AI companies as a middleman. Secondly, OpenAI plans to develop and sell its own consumer hardware device. In May of 2025, OpenAI paid $6.4 billion to acquire a company started by former Apple chief designer Johnny Ive. OpenAI wants to use Ive's expertise to build a new AI consumer device. It's supposed to be some Amazon Echo type thing that can fit in the palm of your hand. It will have cameras, microphones, and speakers on it.
That's great. Just inside of your house. That bundled with OpenAI's eye scanner project. Oh, no way. 6 locations in the US. WorldCoin. They did that in Latin American countries, so they actually scan people's irises and faces, and they gave them a bunch of cryptocurrency, which everybody used to change to a local currency, and then they stopped using it for the most part. So I'm curious to see how it's gonna go here. World plans to deploy 7,500 orbs by the end of the year. So if they were planning to use this money as well as the marketing and other side projects that they have, most likely this is not going to be a realist number if they're starting to put all their efforts into bettering the model because of the harsh competition with Google's Gemini. This is pretty gross, to be honest. You should never, ever, ever trust anything like this from a company. These companies are pretty bad. You shouldn't have your eyes scanned. So there was another very cool picture. I think it was a montage of pictures. Sorry about that. It was a montage of pictures of the invisible world that we live in. That is so unfortunate. I can't find it. There were like infrared pictures where you could see the lidar dot projection map on people's faces and the way cameras can see with it. I'm sorry, I can't find it.
You can talk to it and ask it questions. AI devices have been tried before. For example, in 2023, a startup called Humane AI unveiled an AI pin that clips onto your
They failed monumentally.
shirt. The co-founders of Humane previously worked as designers at Apple, just like Johnny Ive. Altman was a big believer in Humane. He personally invested into one of Humane's private funding rounds. Humane started selling its AI pin in early 2024. It received extremely poor customer reviews and generated minuscule sales. The company shut down in early 2025. The Humane AI pin was basically just a more expensive and less reliable version of the Amazon Echo. We actually made a video about Humane last year, which is linked in the description below. Given that you can already use ChatGPT or any other AI model on your phone or computer, I see no reason why anybody would want a dedicated AI device. The Humane AI pin was an idiotic idea that was doomed to fail from the beginning, but Sam Altman thought it was a good idea and invested his own money into it. The development of OpenAI's consumer device is reportedly not going very well. They'll probably eventually make something similar to the Humane AI pin, and it will be a commercial failure. Finally, Altman says OpenAI will create tremendous economic value by automating science. Altman has long made grandiose statements about the potential for AI to make scientific discoveries. For example, in a recent blog post,
This is the magic figure right here. If we have 10 gigawatts, we're going to be able to do anything. with 10 gigawatts will be able to do it. And when they're going to have 10 gigawatts and they're going to notice that it's not happening, they're going to say, you know what? We're just short, just a little short of how much power we need to be able to cure cancer. We actually need 20 gigawatts of compute, and so on, until there's nobody left to invest in these stupid ass ideas.
He said that if OpenAI had 10 gigawatts of computing power, they could figure out how to cure cancer. To date, neither ChatGPT nor any other AI model has made any significant scientific discoveries. I'm sure that many scientists use AI tools, including ChatGPT, to do some of their grunt work, like crunching data. Maybe this can speed up their scientific discoveries, but I don't see how OpenAI can generate huge revenue from this. A scientist pays the same subscription cost for ChatGPT as anyone else. As an analogy, scientists use laptop computers. They are far more productive with a computer than they would be without one, but they still pay the same normal retail price to buy the computer. If a scientist makes a great scientific discovery, this doesn't benefit the laptop manufacturer. Even if ChatGPT becomes useful to scientists, I fail to see how this will bring in a large amount of revenue to OpenAI. OpenAI claims that ChatGPT 5.2 is marginally better at doing some science tests as compared to Gemini 3. But just because you can memorize a bunch of answers to science tests doesn't mean you can make new discoveries. The intelligence of large language models is constrained by their training data. It may not even be possible for them to make novel discoveries. When Sam Altman talks about automating science and curing cancer, this is an artifice to fool the gullible. He makes grandiose predictions to justify his massive spending commitments, but there's no proof that any of this is even possible. Altman claims he can eventually cure cancer with AI, but in the meantime, he's resorting to some far less glamorous initiatives to bring in revenue. In October, Altman said they'll soon roll out an age verification feature for ChatGPT. Adult
Yeah, because of the way that it affects younger users.
users will then be allowed to use ChatGPT to make erotica. Maybe we'll see an erotic cartoon series about Sam Altman, the firefighter. Altman also has a plan to start monetizing the Sora video generation app, which has to date been a cash incinerator. In early December, they announced a partnership with Disney. Disney agreed to license 200 of its characters, including Marvel and Star Wars characters, to be used on Sora. OpenAI incurs astronomical computational costs to operate Sora, and to date is believed to generate minuscule revenue. Starting in early 2026, Sora users will be able to pay real money for the privilege of generating AI slop videos with Disney
No way, this is gonna be behind a wall of money. That's crazy.
characters. For example, you can make a fake video of yourself as a Jedi. Disney will get a cut of this revenue. I would be shocked if a significant number of people would be willing to pay real money for this. I expect the Disney OpenAI partnership to generate minuscule revenue. OpenAI needs to increase its annual revenue by more than tenfold if it is to pay for its massive data centers.
I don't know how beneficial this is gonna be to Disney. How stupid are they, honestly, to put that on a fucking video generating model? They're not gonna be happy with what they're gonna make their models do. That's gonna be something. I'm pretty sure even people that pay money for it, they will most likely be able to abuse it.
Spending commitments. Now that they're losing market share to Google, this outcome seems increasingly remote. We're already starting to see fear spread across the market. In September, OpenAI signed a $300 billion cloud computing deal with Oracle. Starting in 2027, OpenAI will need to pay Oracle $60 billion per year for cloud computing services. Oracle needs to spend hundreds of billions of dollars to build these data centers before OpenAI starts paying them. Oracle doesn't have enough cash to fund this construction on its own, so they're borrowing money from various banks and other financial institutions. One of the lenders is a private equity firm called Blue Owl Capital. Blue Owl already agreed to fund one of Oracle's data centers in Texas. They were in talks to provide an additional $10 billion to fund another data center in Michigan, which will also be leased to OpenAI. On December 17th, it was reported that Blue Owl pulled out of the deal. They were probably concerned about OpenAI's ability to make good on its spending commitments. If OpenAI can't make good on its payments to Oracle, it's unclear how Oracle will be able to pay its massive data center loans. Credit default swaps on Oracle's bonds have recently surged to over 100 basis points. Investors are now betting that there's a 1% chance that Oracle will default on its debt within the next 5 years. While 1% doesn't sound like a lot, that's pretty high for a company as massive as Oracle. OpenAI itself continues to incur operating losses. They've raised $60 billion of venture capital funding today. It seems like they've already burned through most of this. The company is currently trying to raise $100 billion at an eye-popping $830 billion valuation. They want to do this funding round in the first quarter of 2026. $100 billion is an absurd amount of money to raise in a private funding round. It would be the largest funding round in history. I don't know what investors even have this kind of money. And why would any investor pay such an absurd valuation for a company that has $20 billion of revenue, incurs massive operating losses, and is losing market share to Google? Over the coming months, we'll be watching very carefully what happens with this $100 billion funding round. If this funding round fails, it will mark the beginning of the end for OpenAI. They will default on their spending commitments, and the entire house of cards will come crumbling down. Alright guys, that wraps it up for this video. What do you think about OpenAI's Code Red? Let us know in the comments section below. As always, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Wall Street Millennial, signing out.
And the more and more conversations we
I don't know, that's crazy. They have a lot of on their plate. I don't think they're gonna be able to manage every little crisis at the same time. They're cooked. We're all cooked.